Well, guys, a whole day has passed, unless you're a generous channel joiner, in which case it hasn't. And yeah, now it's time for us to read out the Nemesis 6.2B, which is the first Soviet moto mechanized division. So basically, just to recap very briefly, Nemesis, Eugen lets us vote on which division pairing we'd like to see every other time. So Nemesis 6.2, our third time to vote. This one basically is the first US Armoured Cavalry Regiment from We Was Soldiers. I'm not sure where they got this from, or if this is just the generic, it's always there for the Warno events, because obviously that's not, these guys don't feature. And yeah, we covered that in excruciating detail. Honestly, it was very interesting. I actually thought it was very cool, and it took me about an hour and a half to get through it. And now we see the Pact division. So just to very, very briefly recap what's going on. Basically, Pact is doing this big line, right, going over to the Netherlands to smoke some weed. And the Brits are losing their sector because, haha, French game. And the Americans are going to counterattack here in Magdeburg with some British help. And that's what this first armored division thing is. Just go on the channel and watch the previous video. It'll be linked in the description. And the guys who are sent to stop them are the first People's Mechanized Division. So we got the big one, right? So let's turn to the Soviets, specifically the formation thrown into the US 1st Cavalry Division's tracks to put a stop to NATO's counteroffensive aimed at Magdeburg. The gloriously named 1st Guards People's Motorized Infantry Division has a long service history under Soviet rule, being first formed in 1926 from various independent and training battalions in the Moscow region. It started its life as the Moscow People's Rifle Division, and prior to the Great Patriotic War, which is World War II, it was the poster boy of the Soviet regime, testing new equipment and doctrines and regularly performing in parades in the capital city. In 1939, the formation was expanded to form two new divisions, the 115th and 116th. Only the 6th Rifle Regiment remained from the original formation. This regiment, in turn, was used to form the core of the new Moscow 1st Red Banner Rifle Division, quickly reorganized as the 1st Motorized Division. Okay. After a brief intermezzo, occupying the Baltic states in 1940, is this a real word, bro? A short piece of music. Interesting. Is it a French word? It's Italian. Okay. The formation at full combat strength was transferred to the 7th Mechanized Corps in 1941, fielding some of the first T-34s available at the time. It'd be really funny if they said, and they've still got them. so here are your Soviet gamers off to fight against the bad guys, right? At the start of Operation Barbarossa, the division was given a thorough beating at Orsha, afterwards to be encircled at Mogilev, where some lucky elements broke out, only to be surrounded again near Smolensk, further east. Even fewer managed to escape from that pocket. I mean, oh dear. I gotta tell you, man, these Soviets, they don't have a good time. So this is Orsha, right, in what is modern-day Belarus. And then they got encircled at Mogilev, which is... It's in modern-day Belarus as well. Where's Orsha? Oh, so they went south. So they got beaten, went south, got encircled. And then they got to Smolensk. I should really know where Smolensk is. It's Okay, so this one's a bit further away, right? They made it out of Belarus. Oh my gosh, it's still about... So they got beaten at Orsha. They went south to get encircled at Mogilev, and then they went back here to get encircled at Smolensk. Well, what can I say? I mean, didn't they lose like 30 million people in World War Two? I know, like, World War Two to Americans in particular is like this kind of Saving Private Ryan moment. But for the Soviets, it's like everybody knew somebody who had died, basically. Even fewer managed to escape from that pocket. By August 1941, the division had all but ceased to exist. Well, yeah, you'd think so. With only a handful of survivors from the initial 10,000 men available. World War II divisions, right? Soviet division is not too big. A new 1st Moscow Rifle Division was stood up and in quick succession was organised as a tank division, then motorised to finally end up like a regular infantry formation. But it did get the Guards honorific, with the division soldiering on through some of the bloodiest battles on the Eastern Front, ending the war in 1945 near Königsberg, now Kaliningrad. Man, these guys did not have an easy time. I suppose if you're the big red one, right, then you're going to take all the tough battles. Why is that? Okay, there's a... These are sort of a similar colour. I thought he was like sniffing his leg or something, but... Yeah, it's interesting they've still got the time to shave, or whatever the hell he's doing. This guy's knifing a book. Not sure what's going on there. Anyway, what is that, man? If that... This man is not practicing trigger discipline. He's gonna blow his friend's mustache off. Anyway, the first Guards, whatever. So this is the deepest law. It is here in the Kaliningrad Oblast where the division will remain for the duration of the Cold War. It gained its motor rifle status in 1957 and the proletarian title in 1967. As part of the Baltic Military District 11th Guards Combined Arms... sorry, just to explain this to the Americans who obviously don't know where things are. Obviously, my geography is really good. This was us looking at the Admiral Islands in the Bismarck Sea. Anyway, so basically this used to be part of Germany, as did like most of Russia. But this is like, so if you remember Preußen, right, from the good old days, this was basically where they were based. So this is German, rightful German clay. And then after World War II, the Russians just kind of gypped it, and they still own it actually. So, so even though there's all these not so friendly countries here, I don't know why I'm telling this to a group of military artists. You all obviously already know this, but anyway, I always thought this was really funny. There's actually a top gamer, a top Warno gamer called Pro Commie. You can probably guess his allegiances, and I believe he's in Kaliningrad. So whenever I play against him, I get really high ping because obviously it's got to go through all the the Polish intelligence server, the Russian intelligence server, the German intelligence server, the British intelligence server, and the ping just gets really high, right? Because all the government agencies spying on him. A bit of a hot topic, this part of the world. Anyway, the division's role in wartime would have been to be mobilised quickly and used as part of the second echelon of any strategic war offensive. The 1st Guards Proletarian was a reduced combat-ready division, being kept at 2/3 strength, but ready to move out in its entirety within 72 hours after calling its reservists. So here are some, I believe, T-72s with the funny thing. I don't believe they actually get those in-game. But yeah, you can see it sort of looks like it. We don't get a nice, funny thing, but I believe that's a T-72. Because look, you recognise this, right? The light. Anyway, in our alternative timeline, the 1st Guards Proletarian is just arriving in the Magdeburg area in East Germany from its strategic deployment through Poland. It is immediately thrown into battle, with the mission to delay the NATO counterattack for as long as possible, giving time for the rest of the 11th Guards Army to deploy. To accomplish this mission, 2 of the Baltic Military District's separate anti-tank regiments will be added to the division's roster. The 29th Anti-Tank Artillery Regiment from the 149th Artillery Division and the 993rd Anti-Tank Artillery... Blimey, they got a lot of regiments from the 11th Guards Army. So now we're at the deepest law, right? The Logi tab even. Probably going to have to take a quick break here while I just rest my voice. I've been talking for a whole 9 minutes and... Alright, with the power of editing, that brief 1 minute break feels like a 0 minute break to you. Yeah, it definitely hasn't been a whole day. So, let's get on with the Logi tab. Average, with the logistics category being slightly less compared to a standard infantry division. We are considering that the 1st Guards People's Army is being sent into combat almost straight from the march. The standard units are a FOV. Couldn't even be bothered writing FOB properly. Do you remember when they released these and they said, actually, guys, we're calling them FSBs, and they just... they caved to the social pressure of everybody else calling them FOBs. Anyway, this is a FOV, a field of view. a Gaz 66 and a Ural 4320 Snap. The command units will be Belazor, Chaika, and BMP 2K. Oh no. Oh no, it's gonna be like the last one, isn't it? Here's a really cool NATO option. Here's some packed slop where we didn't even try. So the Logitab has 0 new units, right? Obviously you're very familiar with a FOB. The Gaz 66 is a pretty nice supply truck because it's at that nice kind of ratio, 25 points, 600 supply is pretty nice. So if you turn off the fuel, one 25-point unit can fully resupply 2 Cub volleys, so that's actually pretty useful if you turn off the fuel and the spare parts. And the Ural is like a bigger one, right? It's like 40 points and it's got 1,000 supply. The Belazor is just a cheap 80-point CV. The Chaika's a 100-pointer. So if you look at like second guards, it sounds basically identical. The second they actually bothered to put a new unit in, right? These guys only and like 2 new units in second. This time 0 new units. Belazor, Chaika, FOV, Ural, you know, the other one, the Gaz, BMP 2K, well there it is. So 0 new units in the Logitab, so not much to talk about there, which is probably a good thing, right? I'm trying to get my notepad up and it's in the side of it. Well, how am I supposed to fix that? I suppose I could... There we go. Right. Sorry. So, Infantry tab, pretty good, as the 1st Guard People's Army had 1 BMP regiment, 1 BTR regiment, and 1 regiment without armoured vehicles with reservists. There were ample stocks of older unused APCs, such as the BTR-60PA, which would be commandeered by the last regiment. So I know about the BTR-60PB, not sure what the PA is. Presumably it's going to be very similar to the PB. I'm not sure what the difference is there. The infantry units will be distributed evenly, with 1/3 of each for BMP, BTR, and reservist-based infantry. In effect, this would mean that the BMP infantry will result in aptly named Motostrelki BMP and Motostrelki RPG-22 variants, deployable in the BMP-1P Unspeakable, the BMP-1P Conkers, and the BMP-2. So, I mean, you're very familiar with Motostrelki. The RPG-22 is cheaper, which means you can, you know, you can get the squad for cheaper, which if you want to spam out BMP-2s, that's one of the reasons why 79Y is quite strong, because if you want to spam out BMP-2s, you can get them 5 points cheaper than you can in comparative divisions, because you just lose this, you know, you lose the good RPG, and also you get the D, which is better because it's got more side armor and rear armor, which helps I think it helps a little against artillery. The side armor does help against tank rounds and stuff. Obviously an unspeakable one would still one-shot that. And the BMP-2, right? The BTR-based infantry includes Motostrelki and Motostrelki Metis in either the Gaz trucks or the BTR-60PB. Sorry, I keep frowning. It's because I'm yet to run into anything new. So if you look at this, right, so Motostrelki Metis, right? For some reason these are 7 and the Guard one's 8, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. And then like regular Motostrelki, right, and this is 8 as well, so shouldn't this be 8? Who cares? Reservisti and Reservisti Commander are available with soft skins or with reservist BTR-60 PAs. So I'm not sure, I mean obviously it's going to be reservist, right? Maybe this is it. Maybe it's not got a big gun on it. Yeah, because look, there's no... If this is a PA, well where's the gun? So maybe it's just not got a turret. So that's interesting. Because yeah, the Reservisti are really good, actually. They went up by 5 points. They're still very cost effective. Obviously not as much as they used to be. But the because you get like 8 at one vet, and they are reservists, but generally you get some like something like this nice big military police squad to put with them, and at one vet it doesn't matter too much if they're reservist, and the vehicle's only 15 points, so who knows about this BTR-60PA if it's not got and if it's reservist, at the very least, if it's just a PB but reservist, it'll be 25 points. But if yeah, it looks like it's not got a gun on it, or it's got a like a Dushka or something, as opposed to a big... So it'll only have one gun. So it'll probably be like 20 points. It'll be like 20 or 15 points, depending on how, if that's a heavy MG, because it's not got smoke and stuff. It'll probably be 20 or 15 points, because if it's just this, right, then it's going to cost the same as that, right, if it's just an MMG and otherwise, but if it's a HMG, it'll be 20. So that's decent, but, like, where's the... Man, Saperi RPO and Saperi Commander Squads only have access to soft-skin vehicles, so you've seen those a million times before, right? So 39Y, you know, Saperi RPO Commanders, and they said in the GAZ, right? So this will presumably be whatever, but I mean, you've seen these squads. The SPG-9, the Unspeakable, the Conkers, the 7.62, and the 30mm weapon teams are available, as well as Pulmachiki Commanditura squads, and that's the end of the... So what, 0 new units, 1 new transport, in the entire Inf tab, which is the tab where, you know, there's the most room for, like, new stuff. There's nothing new. That's really depressing. So there's nothing new in the Logi tab, and there's 1 new unit in the Inf tab, and it's a transport. Which is, like, you know, not particularly... It's just a different transport with a few letters changed, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be too different. That's a real shame. I mean, so... Like, where's the... Where's the anything? Where's the effort? Where's the effort? You've just... This is just 39Y. Oh, dear. Oh, come on, man. I mean, so they said, you know, the whole idea behind the deepest law is that the Americans are... doing some epic counterattack with the Brits, and these units, they were in a reservist formation in Kaliningrad, right, low readiness formation or medium readiness formation in Kaliningrad. They're getting summoned and, like, thrown into the breach. Like, there's so much you could do with that. I'm just thinking completely off the top of my head here. There was so many things you could do. Okay, so they got thrown into combat quickly. Let's say you got, you know, maybe sappers with, like, a thermobaric round, right? Although that doesn't fit into the thrown into combat quickly, but they talked about how the Spanish in Nemesis 5, which I covered on the channel as well, they would get an M65 with, like, a thermobaric round or, like, a white phosphorus round or something like that. Why not an RPG with a frag warhead? They existed. They used them a lot. At least I used them a lot in my Arma 3 missions. Why not an RPG with a thermobaric round? Sappers with RPGs, right? They said they were thrown into combat quickly. You could have something like this Moto Strelki squad gets a bunch of... Or this Reservisti squad gets, like, 2 MGs because they were in the stockpile. Or this Reservisti squad gets no MGs because, you know, they were going fast, so they didn't get any MGs. You know, maybe the Pulmachikis have got 1 fewer machine gun because they were going fast. Maybe you've got a squad with 2 machine guns because they were all in a hurry, and another squad with no machine guns because they because somebody gypped it and they couldn't figure out who took it. Right? There's so many things you could do with this, right? The reservist formations, why not a sapper squad with RPOs and satchels, right? And maybe a sapper squad with nothing because somebody took it. What about, like, an ATGM team with... I suppose 2 is not really a number you could go down from, but you could go up an ATGM team with 4 guys because they didn't have enough ATGMs for the whole company or whatever. They were rushed into combat, so maybe a BMP2 without an ATGM. There's no BMP2 in the game without an ATGM for no good reason, you know? Because these history guys come out and they're like, well, every single BMP2 had an ATGM in the docks in 1989. I mean, in a real war, things happen. What if NATO blew up their supply depot, or they got trucked into combat fast and they didn't have any ATGMs? So you wouldn't even need a new model. It could still be there and it could just have no ammo, right? Maybe the crews weren't trained how to use it because they're fresh. You could have anything. You could have, you know, a Commanditura squad that's slightly different. They get slightly different weapons because they were in the Kaliningrad area, so they had slightly different weapons. They raided some supply depot, and the Commanditura have DMRs, right? You could give the Reservisti, you could, you know, change up their weapons a bit. They could have Mozins, right, if they're a low readiness formation. there's so many things. I've thought about this for 5 minutes, and I've come up with all these ideas. This is nothing. I'm sure you could think of some ideas as well, right? Um, where is everything? You know, what about like, you know, you could their medium readiness formations, they were thrown into battle really quickly. Hey, here's an idea I just thought of, right? In this epic gamer thing, the Russians are breaking through and they just beat up the Dutch guys. Why don't they have some Dutch transports? Beuter Sherman, right? Whatever. Why don't they have some Dutch weapons? They captured a weapons stockpile that was full of British smoke grenades, so they've all got smoke grenades, right? What put some effort in, right? You don't actually have to think too far outside the box here. They've written this scenario, it's a low readiness formation, and they've just given it literally nothing new except this one unit. I mean, it's a shame because I mean the American one, which we covered a couple days ago or whatever, depending on when you're seeing this, that was really cool. And they said, you know, so we're giving them an M1 Abrams, but this M1 Abrams has been modified to get more armor and it's got a better gun. Well, why not? You know, why not? Why not? Let's say you could go the other way, right? So, I mean, we've not got to the tanks yet, but you could say like the tanks have worse ammo because basically every single T-72 in the game is firing like the best ammunition available for T-72s, which the Soviets wouldn't really give out to the East Germans, for example, or the Czechs or whatever. You know, you could say, well, these Kaliningrad boys, they didn't get the newest ammo, so the T-72 has less ammo. I mean, we've not got to the tank bit yet, you know. They're still running old weapons. They're running a hodgepodge of things. If you look at, you know, the actual wars that are happening right now, as soon as the war starts, all this TOE crap goes straight out the window because they immediately, like, the soldiers essentially will just pick up anything they can find. If the Soviets are on the attack and they've just beaten up a bunch of guys and these guys are being rushed up or whatever, or that they're on the line, you know, they captured some equipment. They captured some Dutch equipment, some British equipment. You know, you could do anything, right? So for the NATO one, they've said, well, the Brits have been put in to beef up the company, right? Well, you could have something like that here. You could have a couple East Germans, right? You know, where's the effort? And it was the same with the last Pact one as well, where like the French one, the Franco-Spanish air mobile div, that was really cool. But the Soviet one, the Polish one, was like, here's a T-34. It's got a different name, and it's exactly the same as the other one, except it's got more fuel. Where's the effort? It's a shame, really. I mean, it's a massive missed opportunity here. Let's go into the arty tab, I suppose. Hopefully it gets a bit better. Arty, a decent category with a standard selection of artillery pieces. Most of the division's artillery battalions were self-propelled, which will be duly reflected. So you get the 2S1 and 2S3 self-propelled guns, so that's the Gvozdika and the Akatsiya. So if I just go into 39Y here, the division this sounds more and more like, except with some reservisti strapped onto it. You can see this is the Gvozdika, which generally people don't use, and this is the Akatsiya, which generally people use. The BM21 Grad MLRS, well, there it is. And then the 2S12 120mm mortar. And we're at the end of the... This is absolutely mind-blowing, man. I mean, this is ridiculous. Did they not want this to win? I understand that this is one devblog, right? And given that it takes me like an hour to read out the first one, an hour and a half to read out the first one, and this is probably going to take a lot less time because there's nothing in it, by the time they get to the second one, they're probably quite bored and, you know, they ran out of ideas. But, like, what is this? It cannot stand up by itself. This is even worse than the Polish one. Well... I mean, it says now we're getting serious with the tanks, so hopefully something is about to happen. The division's armour is very good for an infantry battle group, primarily due to the prominence of its anti-tank weaponry. The 1st Guards was one of the first Soviet divisions to receive the T-72, which turns out to be both a blessing and a curse, as these were never upgraded for the rest of the Cold War. The division's main tank will be the basic T-72 Ural, and command variant T-72K. And okay, so the T-72 Ural is already in the game, it's only in East German formations, right? So I mean, we've not finished it yet, but I did sort of skim read with my eyes. I'm not very thrilled. So there it is, right? And the T-72K is just the same, but you know, it's just this, right? And that is actually in Soviet service, so that's already in the game, right? Yeah, an up-armoured T-72 Ural 1 will also be available. Okay. So we don't know how up-armoured it'll be, but it'll be presumably somewhere between this and this. Oh, hey, hang on. Somewhere between this and this. So we'll see if it's 17 armour or... Because 17's like a really big point, because it means that you survive 30 AP missiles in one hit, as they said in the American one, right? So that's a big deal. And they probably won't have the better gun. Or it might be like the MUV, which is like 16... But it's got smoke. So that's something new at least. With a few T-72AV, a T-72M with reactive armor to be scrounged for combat service. So that's a new one, I guess. So it's a T-72M regular. So it's got the better gun, slightly better gun, and it's got... what exactly? With reactive armor. So it'll be able to survive a Conquer's side shot because it'll have 6 armor but 11 HP. Actually, when you put reactive armor on the tanks, it goes up to 7 and it gets the 11 HP, but the front armor doesn't change, which is kind of weird. But anyway, because if you look at like the AVRE, right? So this is 5 and then this is 6 plus ERA, and if you look at the T80, it's the same. So 6, 7 plus ERA. Do you know? So it goes up. So the T-72 is going to be... It's going to have the gun, but it's going to have better armor than the M1 on the sides, but worse armor than the M1 on the front. So it'll still die in one hit to a 30 AP missile if it's 16 armor, or even if it's 15 with 11 HP. So that's new, right? It's something new. The division's anti-tank capabilities will be greatly increased thanks to the attachment of MT-12 Repairer and MT-12 Router 100mm anti-tank gun. So this is new, and it's a radar-guided repairer, so that's new, right? I'm happy to see new things. So it'll be presumably higher accuracy or maybe even longer range, so like 2,275 meter gun range, which would actually be pretty cool. Or it'll have higher accuracy on the gun, or maybe even higher accuracy on the Bastion, which will be... it's already quite high accuracy, so that's cool, that's new. It'll probably cost like 90 points, depending on how much better it is. And the BRDM-2 Conquer's in the game, the MTLB Stern S in the game, and the March to War Attacker missile tank destroyers. So the Attacker, that's very cool, right? New stuff, good. New stuff that's not in the game. So the Attacker is on the KA-52, I think. That's the Vicar. Is the Attacker on anything? Or is that... What the hell is the Attacker? Is it on one of the tanks, like the T-80BB? Is that like one of those? That's a Cobra, a Gona, Reflex, Invar. The Attacker. I know it's in Broken Arrow, but I don't know what it is here in this case. Attacker. So like the Sturm is... So it's going to be better than a Sturm, presumably. So it'll be somewhere between a Kokon and a Vickers, I guess. I mean, I don't know. So that's really cool, right? New stuff. But like, I mean, that's the end of it, and you know, I mean, so they can still mess with the penetration values, right? So maybe this T-72 actually gets worse pen than the current T-72, because all the T-72s in the game have like best in field bullets, and if they were the first guys to get it, last guys to upgrade, then maybe it's got an even worse gun. And you might think, well, come on, we need it to be good. Well, that would make it cheaper, right? So let's imagine it's got 18 pen at 1925 range, or 17 pen at 1925 range. That would bring the price down and down. So it'd be cost like 120 points, 110 points, maybe even less. So that could be really cool. But we don't get that. This feels very, very, very low effort to me, man. I mean, the NATO one had all the care in it. It took me an hour and a half to read that out. This one, we're going to be done inside of half an hour. There's nothing here. Average in terms of open slots. The usual Razvedka and Razvedka Saperi will be available in soft-skin transports, as well as the BRDM-2 and BRM-1K armoured recon vehicles. So, I'm going to go back to 39Y, and as you can see, you get the Razvedka, right, and the Razvedka Saperi, although they're saying you get fewer, like, you only get soft-skin transports, so that they're even less cool. Like, this thing's really nice, you don't get that. This thing's really nice, you don't get that. A more unusual unit is the R330 Taran, an MTL-based SIGINT vehicle. Okay, so there it is. So that'll be like the 2Y SIGINT vehicle, which like people generally don't bring these. They're not very good. But it'll probably be a lot like that, except tracked instead of wheeled. So it'll probably have, very good optics and maybe probably bad stealth because it's got a big aerial sticking out of it. So you're probably not going to see a lot of that. Aerial recon will be provided by the Soviet Army Razvedka Mi-14 PS Recon helicopter and the rare Pero UAV. So that's pretty cool, right? So you get a new UAV, the Pero, which will probably be a lot like other UAVs, but, so it might be like the Schmel, which I can never spell. Schmel. So it might be like that. But it says it's rarer, so maybe it's worse or better, who knows? These things are quite standardized, right? So if you look, like, this is just the same as the Aquila. And it's the same as the Belgian one, I think. This Razvedka Mi-14 PS sounds pretty cool. So Mi-14, so like this thing is what I was thinking of. And this has, a very big rocket on it. Who knows if it's actually going to be like that. Trying to think. We're going to get something funny, which is, so like this thing is pretty nice. I don't understand what the difference is between the 40... Oh, I see, it is actually different. It's like taller or something. Is it not just the same thing in export? Oh, this is like the C version or something, so that... It might be something like this. This is pretty cool. This is a pretty cool vehicle. I do like to bring this when I play Rugana once every blue moon. And that's the end of the Recon tab. No new Recon Infantry. Like the BRDM-2 and the BRM-1K are nice to have, right? And they are almost ubiquitous. I'm not particularly thrilled about, this is for going around the sides, this is, you put it with your tanks. AA, blimey, dude. I could just tell from the size of the words that there's just not much here. A classic category with all your favourite anti-air units. Igla, Briusa, Strela 10M and OSA, and nothing new. So if you just go to 39Y, you might see an Igla, a Briusa, an OSA, and a Strela 10M, as well as two other things, right? You'll notice that, like, so it was like when the artillery thing was there was just less than there was in this tab. When the recon thing was there was just less than there was in this tab, and, I think there was more in this tab, but, like, there's just less, and like, what? And it was like this, but just with less, because this wasn't here, and this wasn't here, and... Well, that was about it, really. Everything else was in there. It was literally just the same stuff. Yeah. Helis now. pretty decent with the Baltic Military District being able to provide the usual mix of Mi-8 gunships and Mi-24 anti-tank helicopters, so that's probably going to look a lot like this, except presumably with less stuff, because that seems to be the way things are going, just less things. Air. Pretty good, with the MiG-25 PD interceptors providing the main air defense. So that's new. I do believe I saw this at a previous Nemesis, but that's a MiG-25 interceptor, which is very cool. We've not had that yet. So the only MiG-25s in the game are this big bomber and this Seed. And it's very strange because so the MiG-25 was basically made to go in a straight line really fast. Like, it's not very maneuverable, but it goes in a straight line really fast. Whereas in this game, it's one of the slowest planes, and it has very good agility. So I'm not not so sure about that in terms of like what kind of weapons it's going to have. It's got 4 hard points, right? Do they really stick up out of the wing in IRL? Like, what's the purpose of that? Doesn't that mess with your aerodynamics? Anyway, like this has... Oh, this actually does have stuff on the center line. This one doesn't. So, you know, presumably there's like 2 centerline things there, so you can have 6 bullet. So it might be like the MiG-29 with 2 long range and 4 short range, or because it's a MiG-25, which I think was mainly, you know, they were to intercept bombers, I think, so that it might have more long range and less short range. It's cool either way. Another new unit is the Yak-28PP. As an electronic warfare plane, the first of this kind in Soviet service. So is this the vertical takeoff one? No. Okay. So that's new, and it's going to be an EW plane, which is a shame because EW planes are a bit shit. But, I mean, looks like you're not getting many planes here, so maybe you're going to be bringing it. Close air support will be provided by several variants and differing loadouts of the Su-17M4, which is in the game in many ways. So here you go, rocket, big, medium rockets, HE, AT, 2 racks of bombs is always useful because you can switch one off and bomb and come around. Like, all of these have this thing coming up. I feel like it's a bug. I don't know if that's supposed to be like that. You know, TRM, and then, because this is basically just the Su-22, but different looking, right? I mean, it's literally... You can get like Seed, AT, Rocket, you know, Napalm, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is the summary now, right? The 1Y Guards People's Mechanized Division is an infantry division rushed into combat, but bringing a sizable arsenal of powerful anti-tank weapons and air cover into the fight. So, honestly, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch the American one, it's very good. But this is slop. This is very low effort. I would say it's very slightly better. That in terms of competitive viability, it will be good because T-72 div good. That's all there is to it, really. But I mean, like, what? There's just nothing like Logitab 0 new units except a field of view, right? Infantry tab 1 new transport and like 0 new infantry, even though this is a division that was rushed into battle. I mean, the only thing it was rushed into was this devlog, because they could have really put that in there, like, it's rushed into battle, so these guys have the wrong equipment, these guys have outdated equipment, these guys have double equipment because they were on this stockpile and they were told to go, so they loaded up with all the weapons. You know, maybe a BMP2 without a Conkers, how cool would that be? We have 0 BMP2s without Conkers in the game, or without ATGMs in the game, because, you know, because of these history wormtongs, where every single one had a Conkers when World War III happened in the history book. And I mean, it's ridiculous. And you know, you could have understrength squads, overstrength squads, you could have captured equipment and just literally nothing. And then you've got an arty tab with 0 new stuff. Well, they're capturing stuff. They're invading territory, you know, or they were on the Kaliningrad stockpile. Surely Kaliningrad was defended by some, like, really heavy stuff, right? Maybe you could get something like that. Tank tab, so they got 2 new tanks, but they're like low effort tanks. I mean, this is probably the tab I have the least complaints about, but you know, they could do something with the ammo. So they could say the ammo's worse because they got the first tank, so they've got the worst ammo, right? Um, you know, this router thing sounds cool. The attacker sounds cool. The recon, like low effort recon, like with just nothing in it. I mean, just the usuals. No like reservisti recon squad, Kaliningrad Rangers, right? Kaliningrad Patrol, whatever. Some false flag squads, some maybe give them some East Germans because they're rushing into battle. Maybe they should have like a handful of Poles and a handful of East Germans. Something, anything. This Terran thing, okay. I mean, it's a new model, but it's just like the vector thing that's already in the game that I showed you. This thing sounds cool. We'll see what that's like. The UAV sounds okay. It's probably just going to be like all the other UAVs, but at least it's new. The AA category has 0 new things. Like, wasn't Kaliningrad defended by big stuff? You know, what about... So in the Army General campaign, the Soviets have Beuter Eyehawks. No, it was the East Germans, right? They've got Beuter Eyehawks. They stole some Eyehawks and repurposed them for the Army General campaign. Well, where's that? You know, they just beat up a bunch of Dutch people. Where's the Dutch equipment? Could have anything, right? Maybe they captured some Stingers. They're pretty easy to use. Helis is just the usual stuff. I mean, I don't know what you could do there, really. And then the air, which, yeah, okay, you get MiG-25s, that's cool. But, like, no new ground strike stuff. Maybe some extra MiG-25 ground attack stuff would be cool. This is really low effort. It's really low effort. In the 5 minutes it took me to read this, I came up with several ideas on how you could make this, you know, just slightly more appealing. It's a shame, really, because the American one is the best one we've seen so far, and this might be the worst. I mean, I suppose it's slightly better than the Polish one, but I mean, it's because the Polish one in the tank tab was just like, here's a new tank. It's exactly the same as the old tank, and they did that twice. But this is like, you know, like half the stuff, just like nothing new, nothing new, nothing new. Few new things, one new thing, 2 new things, nothing new, nothing new. You know, it's... I despair. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, thank you for watching. Hopefully you share my concerns. And hopefully 6.3 has a good NATO thing and a good pact thing. The real kicker's going to be if 6.3 has a bad NATO division and a good pact division, because then we're going to end up, because just in terms of who buys stuff, right? The Americans have the biggest audience. They're going to vote for the American div. Like, the Poles obviously are going to vote for the Polish one, but I'm speaking in terms of averages here. You're obviously a sovereign individual, and I appreciate you uniquely, dear viewer. But, I mean, you get my point. And so, hopefully 6.3 has a good pack div and a good NATO div. Because otherwise, it's just gonna, like... If I could choose right now from what I've currently seen, I'd pick the NATO div from the first one and the NATO div from the second one. This pack stuff's all been crap. Whatever, I'll see you around.